Without your health, you can't possibly enjoy your wealth. Anonymous. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Sugar Mama's Fireplay podcast. I am financial planner Canna Campbell. This morning, I really want to talk to you about the importance of your health. Always, it is health before wealth, particularly your mental health. The other day on Instagram, somebody messaged me and they were feeling really disheartened and frustrated and set back in life because they had had some unexpected doctor's bills that had popped up, and they were related around this particular person's mental health. And they were really upset, explaining that they'd had to put their financial goals on hold and they were relying on their emergency money, which was quickly eroding away. And they felt so disheartened and disappointed in themselves. As I was reading their message, my heart sank because it is always your health before wealth. I would never want someone to prioritize their financial goals at the cost and expense of their physical and mental health. It simply isn't worth it. Your goals and your wealth creation is a journey. It's an adventure. It's never, ever this straight, smooth sailing trajectory path onwards and upwards. It just simply doesn't work like that. Life doesn't work like that. Any type of journey, or whether it be a fitness goal or a personal growth goal or even a career goal, there are all sorts of twists and turns and changes and, detours along the way. As we go through our financial journey, there are going to be times where we have to press pause and it's out of our control. There are going to be setbacks that simply happen. Unexpected expenses, dental bills, medical bills, parking tickets, speeding fines, maybe even a legal expense that wasn't to be expected. There are also going to be challenges. There are going to be testing times. It's just life. But on the flip side of that, because the pendulum swings both ways, I believe, there are going to be breakthroughs. There are going to be blessings. There are going to be windfalls. And of course, there's going to be progress. Progress from simply your hard work and determination to work on your financial goals and dreams. This is why I always like to use the analogy of the ocean and waves. The ocean is never just flat and still. In some parts of the world, there are great big storms with these huge waves or tsunamis, whereas other parts of the world, the ocean might be really still and calm. The thing is, we need to understand how to ride all the different conditions. Learn how to surf those waves in a really efficient way where we preserve our energy. We get from one part of the ocean to the other part where we want to go, and we do it in a safe, informed, educated, and wise way. Also, it's not just about riding the waves, I've realized. It's also about reading the different conditions, because when we can understand the different conditions, we invest some time exploring the conditions, looking at the rips, looking at the currents, looking at the conditions. We gain a lot by stepping back and having some perspective before we dive in, because we can use those conditions to our advantage to adjust our strategy. We know when we need to hold off maybe catching a wave, or we know, okay, now's the time to go because this rip or this current is actually going to help me get from one side of the ocean to the other in a much more efficient way and also a lot faster way, or even maybe a much safer way. So as my podcast continues to grow and evolve every single week as I publish a podcast for you, this, analogy of the ocean is continuing to evolve and grow and expand as well as we all become wiser, more informed, and more educated with our financial goals and our financial journey. So remember, it's about riding the different conditions, learning to keep our head above water, learning to preserve our energy, and of course, having that moment up front before we dive in to read and understand the different conditions that we're dealing with so we can use all of this to our advantage. Now, coming back to this message on Instagram from this particular person, I immediately replied back to them and said, look, this is perfectly fine. It's always, always your health before your wealth. It is okay to put your financial goals on hold. be grateful for the fact that you have an emergency savings account, because that is exactly what it is there for you. And that is also something really important, because if you didn't have that emergency money, you would be potentially relying on a credit card or borrowing money from a family member or a friend or some other sort of source of credit, and you potentially could be having more health concerns or worries or spiraling more out of control because you've got the additional stress of finances. At least, flick that switch of being annoyed and frustrated of having to tap into your emergency money, and not just, if you have to use it for medical expenses, any sort of setback. Never be frustrated at having to, or annoyed at yourself for having something happening and you having to rely on your emergency money. Flick that switch to gratitude. Be grateful for the fact you do the wise, sensible, and responsible thing of having some emergency money set aside. Okay, maybe you didn't have enough, but guess what? That's a valuable lesson to learn early in life, which is great, to rebuild that emergency money and to put some more money in, because that simply wasn't enough. But my point is, flick it to gratitude. It will help you so much more in learning and growing from the challenge or the situation that you're currently dealing with. Now, when I was reading this particular person's message, it really took me back in time to when I was really sick. I have been very open and transparent about my journey with postnatal depression and post-traumatic stress syndrome. I was in a really dark, deep place. I was not sleeping, and when I would sleep, I was sleep talking and sleep walking. I'd get myself dressed, I'd find myself in different parts of the house. I was so entrenched in my nightmares and dreams. It was just so confusing, and it just really, my mental health really suffered. And I was just desperate, though, to get better. I was desperate to understand exactly what I was dealing with. I was struggling to read the conditions of the waves, because I knew that if I could understand what was wrong with me, whether, any form of sort of diagnosis, I could then work out, okay, this is the process or the formula or the recipe or the instructions or the directions that you follow to get better. And I did all the right things. I got help. And I will also admit, when I was going through this time, I kept on pushing it down and trying to push through it, thinking it was normal to feel like this. It was no big deal. And because I delayed it, I made it worse. I saw doctors, I saw specialists, I saw alternative therapies. I went and even got vitamin infusions. All I wanted to do was get better and feel normal again and see the sunrise and see my smile come back and learn how to laugh again. And I remember this one particular week, I had over $2,000 worth of medical expenses. And it wasn't just a once-off week. Before that, it had been, I think, about $800 or $1,200. The week after that, it had been about $1,500. It was just this wave of medical bills after medical bills after medical bills. And, I had emergency money, which I used as my safety net to help fund all these bills without having to worry about a credit card to charge all of this. And thank goodness I did, because I know that my mental health, if I was, I was struggling to deal with enough on my plate, if I added the stress of finance in there, things could have gotten even more serious. And at the time, I don't think they could have actually gotten any harder for me. And this is life. We are not resilient from physical and mental health conditions, and accidents happen, illnesses happen. Things can happen very, very quickly. We all know of situations where people were very well, a couple of weeks ago, and then suddenly got ill and went downhill very, very quickly, and it's taken them a while to recover. We also know of accidents, things that just suddenly happen, or, just life. And we cannot let our ego or arrogance block that reality from our life. We must be humble, we must be gracious, and we must be accepting of what is in store for us, and be able to adapt it, be able to read it, and to be able to be as resilient as possible as we keep our head above water and ride those conditions to the best of our ability. And I have to say, talking from deep personal experience, without your mental health, the wheels can really fall off, and they can fall off spectacularly. You must always prioritize your mental health. I know for myself, when my mental health, wavers, you could say, or I'm having a bad week or a bad day, I struggle to concentrate at work. I don't feel as present with my children like I should be. My energy levels really struggle. I'm at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I'm ready for bed, or it's hard to get up in the morning. Also, I find if I am doing some exercise, I don't exercise, to the best of my workout. I walk away going, I could have worked harder. I don't have that high or that buzz from having a great exercise session. Also, my motivation, flatlines. And the worst thing of all, which I think is the biggest thing for me, is especially as someone who's hypersensitive, and I find that I don't react like I normally would to situations, particularly if there's something with an element of a trigger in it for me. I like to try and be calm. I like to try and be rational and practical as much as I can. But if my mental health is suffering, I'm more likely to snap or bite back or become defensive. So I know for me that mental health is really important. I have to check in with myself on a regular basis. So for today's podcast, what I want to do is show you 3 ways how I prioritize my mental health in my financial journey, and I always put my health before my wealth. And I also want to remind you, when you have health issues or mental health issues, or whatever kind and type it might be, you aren't of much help to other people. If you're not feeling well, you can't work to the best of your ability. You're not going to be as much value to your employer or to your clients or to the brands, whoever it is that you work with. You're not going to be as much help to your friends and family. You're not going to be there as much. You might be not concentrating much, or it'll be, as I say, present enough. Like all these things, mental health, just like finances, I guess you could say, also has a huge flow-on effect into other elements of our lives. So this is why it is so important that we always prioritize health before wealth when it comes to our goals. All right, so these are the 3 things that I always follow to try and prioritize my mental health in my financial goals and my financial journey. Number 1 is always having enough emergency money set aside in a dedicated savings account. The amount of emergency money you should have will vary from one person to the next. Also, it's never a set number. You will go through different times of your life where you may need more or you may in fact need less. But you've got to look at your own individual situation and the reality of your situation and the cost of each individual risk and the likelihood of that risk coming up. So for example, say you are living at home and a lot of your living expenses are covered for, by living with a parent or someone else. You may not necessarily need as much emergency money as someone with, say, 3 children, working part-time and a mortgage. However, it doesn't mean that you don't need emergency money. You would look at your situation individually. You'd say, okay, well, how much annual leave do I have accumulated? How much sick leave do I have accumulated? Do I have any health concerns, such as some dental problems, or do I have, a thyroid problem where I need to get regular treatment? Do I have family members that live overseas where I might suddenly have to jump on a plane last minute and take time off away from work and have to pay for airfare and accommodation and spending money? Do I have a job where I'm in an industry there where people often get made redundant and with not much notice? Also look at your financial goals. Like, what are you working on in that emergency money? What's going to jeopardize? What are your financial responsibilities? Perhaps you have a margin loan attached to your share portfolio, that you're responsible for. Got to look at your individual situation and make sure you work out the right amount of emergency money that you need. That money is saved up, set aside in a separate savings account. And as I've said in the past, if you have a offset account, you can use that to help reduce the interest on your mortgage with that emergency money. So it's at least helping save you valuable time and interest off your home loan. But you must have that money set aside. The benefit of this is to your headspace is huge. It gives you a huge amount of peace of mind and comfort and a good night's sleep, knowing that if anything happens, you've got, whatever amount of money set aside to rely on to get you through most challenges. And I will also point out, I find personally in life when bad things happen, they come in waves of 3. So don't just think, oh, my car could break down. That would be one thing. All right, yes, your car could break down in 1 week, but in the same week, you could also have an unexpected medical bill, say a dental bill at $2,000. And yes, you might think you've got, car insurance, but also don't forget you've got that excess. And then you might have something else, like you might lose your job the following week and be without a job for say 3 months or so. So think about all 3 things suddenly happening at the same time. That's going to give you a much more honest and realistic a number as to how much emergency money you have. But once you have that emergency money, there is huge comfort. There is a huge stress that comes off your shoulders and pressure, knowing that, you've got this. You can get through a tough time. And as I say, if you ever get frustrated, if you're tapping into that emergency money, simply flick that switch. Flick it to gratitude. Give yourself a massive pat on the back for having that emergency money set aside. Thank goodness you are not leaning towards a credit card or some other form of debt to get through this time, making your stress and pressures concerning. I can't stress this enough. If you have children, and sometimes when we're thinking about our emergency money, we think about it from us, like what could happen to me, but also think about your children. What would happen if your child was sick and had to go to hospital for a month or two? Could you take 2 months off work to make sure that you're in hospital with them every single day of the week, holding their hand? These are realistic things that happen in life. As I say, we cannot be naive. We can't let our ego cloud the reality of life. We've got to be open and honest about the real risks that we all face and what life has in store for us. So please make sure, number one, you have that emergency money set aside. And I have my emergency money is actually set up through our redraw facility, so we're saving valuable time and interest. The second thing is I have always factored in, and probably more so now having, I've got 2 children and a third one on the way, is factoring in some sanity money into your budget, mental health allowance, you could call it. And that is money that you, in the safe boundaries and an agreed boundaries of your budget, where you're allowed to go and spend some money. It doesn't have to necessarily be a lot of money, but you choose to use your money in an efficient way and in a way that's going to give you a great return on your investment from a mental health perspective. And that might be something like paying for meditation lessons or yoga lessons or your gym membership. It might be, factoring money in there to go and see a professional or see a naturopath or a nutritionist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist. You've got to have that in there. Of course, there are a whole range of really budget-friendly things out there that you can do to prioritize your mental health. Things like just catching up with a friend for a cup of tea or a coffee, going for a walk together. That doesn't really cost much. Also, for me, one of the great things is spending time alone. Just having some time to myself really helps my headspace. Last week, I was having just a really crappy week. I was really, really drained. And I ended up going into Mecca Cosmetics, and this is not a sponsored podcast. And I bought a couple of pieces of makeup, and I bought myself a beautiful scented candle. And I know this sounds really materialistic and shallow, and it wasn't so much from the makeup, but it was the candle was really important to me. Coming home and lighting that candle in the room by myself really, I guess, helped take the edge off how I was feeling. I was able to recalibrate myself, and every time I now walk back into the bedroom, there's a really good quality scented candle. My bedroom, smells of it and reminds me, and it just instantly, calms me down again. Also, just sometimes just taking a book and reading is something also that's really budget friendly and great for our mental health. And as you guys know, I am always happy to go and do a bit of a decluttering session if I'm feeling overwhelmed or suffocated or feel like I'm lacking a little bit of clarity or direction in my life. Reorganizing a drawer, reorganizing a cupboard or a wardrobe helps so much. Letting things go is incredibly cathartic. And not only does it not cost anything, sometimes you can also make some extra money if you're looking at, getting rid of those items in a responsible way. The pre-loved economy is huge and is also so important for our planet. And of course, spending time looking at removing toxic things, toxic situations, even toxic people in our life. And perhaps you look at certain people that might drain your resources or not make you feel good about yourself or not support your life decisions or your lifestyle choices. Perhaps by spending some time, you go, okay, well, maybe I won't catch up as much with that person, or when I do catch up with them, I'll make it a briefer catch up, or I'll just have a bit of some breathing space. These are all things that, you prioritize both financial and non-financial in the ongoing process of your mental health incorporated into your balance. And I am not a financial planner that's going to, that I am frugal with every single dollar I earn. If anything, I'm actually about balance. I reward myself with a designer handbag once a year if I've achieved my financial goals and my lifestyle goals. And I have no problem if I haven't achieved that goal of saying, sorry, no handbag this year, and that's okay. And I do buy a handbag quite often. I'm a massive fan of the pre-loved economy, but it's all about experiences and investing in your own happiness and health. I'm not a advocate of, coming to this planet, saving every dollar, being frugal and mean and depriving ourselves, because we come here with nothing and we leave with nothing. As I say, it's about balance. It's a journey. We want to make sure we enjoy our time here, and, making sure that you prioritize, your financial goals before you go and, spend is really important. And this leads me to my next third point, and that is, investing in passive income, having a mindful money number, having a financial goal. When I was doing the $1,000 project, when that was born, I was fresh out of my separation, and you will know this obviously from so many of my other videos and podcasts, but my budget was so tight. All my money went to the legal fees and to keeping a roof over my head for Rocco and I, and keeping Rocco in the house so that he had the same routine, and to make that transition for him as smooth as possible, because Rocco is obviously, at the time, is my number one priority. Of course, my children and Tom are my number one priority now, but having that, that was when the $1,000 project was born. And I can't tell you how much of that, having a financial goal and starting to see that I was building a passive income stream through taking one big scary goal and just breaking it up into $1,000 at a time, what that did to my sense of self-worth and my confidence. At the time, I had no self-worth and I had no confidence whatsoever. But every time I transferred money into my $1,000 project account, and every time I hit $1,000, I'd be so excited, and I would, quickly go and invest the $1,000 into some shares and work out, okay, well, that represents another $50 a year in estimated passive income. And I'd look back, take a step back and review it and go, oh, wow, I've now got $3,000. That was actually a lot quicker than I thought. Or, wow, I'm actually making a difference here. This is starting to grow. This is starting to add up. And I'd see, dividends being reinvested, or I'd see dividends, be deposited into the $1,000 project account. I was like, wow, this is working. That progress continued to only fuel and help re-strengthen and rebuild my mental health again. And this is why, I wrote a book called Mindful Money. Your mindful money number is the amount of passive income that you want to earn with your money working for you, so that you can have more balance in your life. You don't necessarily have to work 5 days a week. You can work 4 days a week. You can afford to pay for a holiday once or even maybe twice a year. You can potentially retire earlier. You can give more money to charity because that's what makes you feel good. That's what makes you feel happy. So in conclusion to this podcast, and that is to always be kind to yourself. Be kind to your financial goals, but be kind towards your physical and mental health. Have awareness. Have the time and the space where you can afford to check in with yourself and see how your mind and body is feeling. And when you do this, it allows you to quickly get help when you need it, because this sooner is better. As I said at the beginning of this podcast, when I got sick, I let it go for far too long and things spiraled out of control. I hit an absolute rock bottom where I was in a really dark and scary place. And what I have learned from that is it is so important for me to be regularly on top of my mental health. So if I feel a bit shaky or a bit nervy, I know to put my hand up and get for help. And because I've factored that into my financial goals and my budget and my emergency money, I can quickly and easily afford to pay for those resources, whether it be getting someone to help me with the kids so I can have a couple of hours to myself, whether it be seeing a specialist, whether it be seeing a naturopath or getting a massage. It is important that you check on yourself on a regular basis so that plate doesn't hit the ground and smash everywhere. And look, if it does smash everywhere, it's okay. It's all right. We can clean it up, and we can clean it up quickly. But ideally, if we have that proactive strategy, support system, and tools and resources available to quickly grab, we hopefully catch that plate before it hits the ground. And that's what our ideal objective is, because the quicker and easier we can clean up the mess. And I say mess not in a negative way or a bad way. I say mess because a mess can be also a beautiful thing as well. And I have to say, through going through rock bottom, there's been a huge blessing and beauty and depth and growth that's come from my journey, because even though it was hell at the time, I feel like I have a much more profound sense of awareness and sensitivity, not just to myself, but to other people. I feel like I sense things aren't right with other people, and I'm able, it's given me I feel like almost like a skill to tap into other people to say, hey, something doesn't seem right. Like I feel like I'm worried about this for you or that for you. And I can intuitively quite often pick up other people's stuff before they've realized it themselves, or that they open up to me and go, yeah, you're right, this is really worrying me, or this is really frightening me, or this is what's going on. I'm able to then help that. And particularly for my kids, I feel like it's given me a greater understanding to read them and read what they need and read what they want. And of course, I don't get it right all the time. I sometimes misread it, but I would have glazed over that if I hadn't gone through that journey. And there's nothing wrong with mental health. As I say, there is huge, profound growth behind all the darkness. And as the light starts to emerge, and you have a greater appreciation and gratitude after going through something like that. Your financial goals are still going to be there for you. If you have to pause, postpone, delay, or reduce your financial strategy or your financial journey, it is absolutely, perfectly okay. It is life. It is natural. It's what we all do. It's what I have to do sometimes. This is not a race. This is a journey. It's an adventure. You can take it as quickly as you like at times, and there are times where you can take it slowly and enjoy the ride. And there are times where you can just simply park it, take a rest, take a break, enjoy the view, have some deep breaths, some time to yourself, have a sleep, recharge those batteries, and when you're ready, get back on it again. But don't get back on it again until you're ready. Otherwise, you won't get the most out of the experience. If you could just leave a rating and a review on this podcast channel, I would greatly appreciate it, because just like every dollar counts towards our financial goals and dreams, for me, every rating and review that I get helps me keep going and making this financially creative content and obviously educationally foundation content for you every single day. So if you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it. All right, everyone, have a fantastic week. Of course, please feel free to share this podcast with anyone you think that might benefit from this or enjoy listening to what I have to say. And enjoy the rest of your week. I will see you on Thursday on my YouTube channel, Sugar Mama TV, for more financially inspiring, educational, and motivational content. Ciao for now.